Griffins aren't as strong at that altitude, and neither is their ability to channel, I say. It's an illogical place for them to attack unless they knew the wards would fail, especially since the village looks to be about, an hour's flight from the nearest outpost? I glance at the map to be sure I'm not making a fool of myself. That is Hakir right there, isn't it? Scribe's training for the win.
For the win. Ay.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the St. Balasar University English Club podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. Joshua, you're supposed to respond to me.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua, this is the bit. You know, you give a little introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want to be some silly character?
Yeah, no, sorry. Sorry, can't you see that I'm brooding over here?
Could it possibly be because your father was killed?
Yeah, it's because my father was killed, and now I'm, like, really sexy about it. Okay?
Are you, wild guess, Zayden Ryerson?
Yeah? Who else has abs like these?
You are so sexy. I have to dedicate paragraphs upon paragraphs to how sexy you are, even though I'm kind of scared of you.
Yeah, I mean, even I describe in my own internal narration how sexy I am.
Damn it, Joshua.
It's so important that I do that.
No spoilers. We got it. All right, so today we have a really, really exciting episode. I have been looking forward to this for a long time. This feels like Christmas morning. We are playing a game with a book I'm sure a lot of you have heard of already, Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing. Now, if you'll remember some previous episodes we've done, we want to revisit our half and half premise, maybe split it off from our mainline content and turn it into more of a game. Where the title's still pending. I like the title First Half Drafts, but Joshua doesn't because he has no sense of taste.
Yeah, it's alright. I like half being in there, but I'm not sold on it.
Well, it's because you take the first half and then you draft out the rest. I don't know. The point is, if you have an idea for what the title of this show should be, let us know. But like the working title suggests, this is a sort of game show where I have only read the first half of Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing, and I am using my English Club skills to predict the second half. Now, Joshua has only read the second half and not the first. So we are going to try to make the twain meet with a little bit of an extra element of challenge. Once I give a summary for the first half of the book and launch into my predictions, Joshua will rate me on 2 sliding scales from 1 to 10. First one is for the accuracy of my predictions, and second is for how much of an improvement it would be. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way you can get a perfect 20. And that's true, because here at the English Club, we do not believe in perfection. We think that the best that we can strive for is an improvement under the framework of the author's vision, and we are turning this into a sort of challenge for ourselves. So maybe we can get an 18 or a 19 if our prediction is pretty accurate but improves the story in major ways. So,
you might also be wondering, though, if this is a game show, against whom is Andrew competing? Andrew's not going to be the only one predicting how the second half of the book ends. Our other contestant is going to be my trusty tarot cards. So before Andrew's prediction, I am going to pull, let's say, 3 cards and read them in tandem and see what they say about the second half of Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing. And then if Andrew is less accurate than the tarot cards, then his score in terms of accuracy will be an automatic 0. Mm-hmm. So he can still get up to 10 points for improvement, but his score in terms of accuracy will be 0. So you don't want to lose to the tarot cards.
I have to have a stronger heart than the cards.
And that's going to be hard because I believe in the heart of the cards. I've mixed all 5 pieces of Exodia into my tarot deck. And if I draw them, then your life points will be reduced to 0.
Then I just die. I go to the Shadow Realm. Oh, I get conscripted into the stupid college. That's my eternal punishment.
Is it called The Academy?
It's called Basgiath College.
Okay, I don't think they ever say the name in the second half, so I was just calling it The Academy in my head.
That's really funny. The nomenclature that you're coming up with. We'll dive into that. But so if you're listening to us for the first time, welcome. We are real life critique partners who noticed a lot of negativity in the booktube space. So we thought we would add our own perspectives as people who have seen a lot of crazy writing on the internet and in real life. We thought we would add our own positivity and try to view things in a critical light, but ultimately in a constructive light. Sometimes we succeed.
Yeah, critical/pause.
Yeah, sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, but it's always a good time. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram for more in between episodes. I've started to make really funny reels on Instagram. I'm making fan cams of Lightlark characters in the hopes of getting attention. It's going super well.
Yeah, I saw the Oro one today. That one was golden.
Shut up, Joshua. All right, so without further ado, let's launch into part 1 of the yet unnamed book, half-reading book game. My summary of the first half of the book.
I cannot wait to find out what happens in the first half of this book, because, like, it kind of seems like literally one exact thing happened.
Well,
and it sounds like it happened right before the part where I started reading.
Yeah, a whole lot of things happened, and we will get into the structure of these things. But yeah, I think you're right. Just to lay the stage, this is well known to be an enemies to lovers story. I am pretty sure that at the 50% mark exactly, enemies became lovers. So I got all of the establishment and the enemies side of things, and Joshua got just the lovers.
All that sweet, sweet lovin'.
All that sweet, sweet lovin'. So yeah, no, I'm excited too. I think to start out with, let me just read the jacket so we get an overview of what Yarros wants us to know about Fourth Wing. 20-year-old Violet Sorrengail was supposed to enter the Scribe Quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now, the commanding general, also known as her tough-as-talons mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away. Because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter, like Xaden Ryerson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet, with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death tolls continue to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Basgiath War College has an agenda. Because once you enter, there are only two ways out. Graduate or die. Dun dun dun. All right.
I have so many thoughts about that, but I can't say anything.
Yeah, no, you can't say
Wow, that's really interesting. That's my first time hearing that. As soon as I got the book, I ripped the back cover off because I didn't want to know anything about what happened in the beginning.
Awesome. So, yeah, that's really awesome that you got no impression of a lot of this stuff in the second half of the book. And it really makes me feel good about my predictions. So, yeah, Violet Sorrengail is a young woman who lives in the Moraine province of Navarre, a country bordering on the nation of Paramiel. consisting of such locales as the Lucaras province and the Chaldeer province, all living on the continent. Capital T, capital C, the continent. That's a nitpick, but it really bothered me that she had fantasy names for everything but the larger geographic area that this takes place in.
I think that one actually makes sense because a lot of the names are Celtic inspired, and like that's how Ireland is referred to in a lot of Irish stuff, is as the island.
Oh, okay. So they're Irish.
I think that's why. Yeah, it's Irish inspired.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think also, like, if you tilt the map sideways, it kind of looks like Ireland, so...
Oh my god, this is crazy. The cliffs of Dralord Dever.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So, okay, I'm an idiot. Let's keep going. Violet is physically frail and I think sickly in some vaguely defined way that just makes her not a good candidate for soldiering in general, which is kind of makes her the black sheep of her family. Like the dust jacket mentions, she has a tough-as-talons general mother and a sister who is also a badass dragon rider. She has a brother who's a dragon rider, but he is dead and we don't really learn why for a little bit. So her mother basically rips her planned life away and says, you have to go be a dragon rider now because I want my kids to be dragon riders. And that seemed to be kind of the long and short of it. Right off the bat, we kind of are exposed to this weird, like, Ragnar Redbeard might makes right kind of society. It reminds me a lot of like Starship Troopers. Joshua, I don't know if you know too much about that. It's like everyone is just desensitized to death and violence, and the rule of strength and power like supersedes all. I think that's really interesting and something that she brings right in very, very naturally. You almost don't notice it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Starship Troopers, but it sounds right, I guess. I can't say anything, but sure.
Okay, fine. Today is Conscription Day, capital C, capital D, because this is a YA adjacent book.
Wake up, Violet. It's time for the Inciting Incident Festival.
it's on the continent. It is Conscription Day. She's, like we said, trained to be a scribe her whole life, and at the very last second, she's like, has to become a dragon rider now. She has had all of 6 months to prepare herself, whereas most people that go into this have been training their entire life. Awesome stakes. Love it so far. Violet and her sister Mira both kind of think that this is a death trap, but her mother kind of seems supportive in her own kind of gruff way. You can tell she has this belief in Violet that even Violet doesn't have. So that was some interesting character work off the bat. So Mira's this super badass dragon rider, gives her like I think like boots and a set of sick clothes and a corset made out of dragon scales that are like super strong or whatever, like it's fantasy armor, which I guess it is, so that makes sense. Tells her, find Dainitos, your childhood friend, and whatever you do, avoid Xaden Ryerson at all costs, because he is the son of this crazy rebellion that happened, and our mother killed his father and all the other parents of the rebellion, and forced all the children to join up with the Dragon Riders. So, challenge number 1 is to cross the parapet, which is like this non-OSHA compliant, ridiculous stone bridge that links the Dragon Quadrant to the rest of the college. I didn't really understand the geography, but it was just like, this is a really super dangerous bridge and you got to walk across it. It might be sloped or windy or whatever. I have no idea.
It came up again in the second half. I'll say that because I don't really feel like it existing in the second half is a spoiler.
No.
And I assumed that they weren't describing the geography because it had already been described, but like trying to imagine it was so confusing.
So I just kind of pictured like a slanted walkway. I have no idea. It was weird.
Because my understanding is a parapet is that it's like a sort of like a an open air balcony / hallway that connects two towers in a castle, and there's like a wall on one side and then it's open on the other side, usually to like the interior of the castle.
Right.
But that didn't really sound like where they were when it came up again in the second part.
No,
so like, what
not.
is this place?
I have no idea. I have no idea what we're looking at here, but it's super dangerous. You can't walk across it. She's got her rider boots and she's not confident in herself, but like she's got a fighting chance at this. She meets two people, Dylan and Rhiannon. Rhiannon is kind of unremarkable, but wallahi on God, the mark of death was upon Dylan's brow. The second I saw him, I don't know how to explain it. I knew he would die. And sure enough, he immediately slips and falls into a ravine the second that we see him get on the parapet. So that kind of sets a tone of predictability for a lot of these plot points.
Oh, so you think Dylan died?
Oh God, please tell me he doesn't come back. I did not include him.
Interesting.
Oh my God, I hate you. Xaden's there. He's so sexy. He's like the sexiest guy in the whole world, even though he's so dangerous, and he's the son of an evil, evil man. He immediately, through some contrivance, finds out that Violet is who she is, and like vows to kill her, but says, I'm not going to do it. See how the parapet handled your little friend Dylan?
Xaden Grimshaw Ryerson, they call him.
Yeah, literally Xaden Grimshaw Ryerson. And speaking of Grimshaw, like, I do want to say, this is a sweeping declaration for Fourth Wing. I love you, Rebecca. Like, I'm pretty sure that you've attended a couple English Club meetings before, because this is like a better version of Lightlark, starting out with the two love interest characters. But there's some other stuff that's really interesting parallel with Lightlark that we'll dive into. I can tell you really did your homework. There's also this guy, his name is Jack Barlow. He is just this crazy man who wants to kill Violet because he's evil and he thinks she's weak. And she like crosses the parapet just in time to avoid him. And he's like shouting out how much he wants to like murder her or whatever.
Wait, so he wants to kill her like just for no reason right from the start?
Well, not for no reason right from the start, but like for very flimsy, she is weak and I don't want her holding us back kind of logic.
So is he a child of one of the rebels?
I don't believe he is. No.
Okay.
Back to the Starship Troopers analogy. I think he's just a product of this like really messed up proto-fascist society where physical violence is so treasured over everything else that he's just like an inevitability. So I didn't have a problem with how flimsy his motivations were, but I can see how that might bother some people.
Okay, got it. He's just a bully.
Yeah, he's just a bully. While we're talking about general stuff, this book is full of Tiffany problems. Joshua, I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, I was about to say, what on earth could that possibly mean? For
our listeners and Joshua who are lucky enough not to be on the writing side of the internet, tvtropes.com side of the internet, the Tiffany problem is this like weird phenomenon in fantasy where you can be historically accurate and it still feels like wrong and anachronistic. It comes from the fact that Tiffany is a name attested from like, I think the 12th century, like Theophania. It is completely like historically accurate to name a character in a fantasy story like Tiffany, but no one would ever take you seriously.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which manifests pretty interestingly in Fourth Wing because of this one little detail outside of the corpus that I've never seen before in a book. It says, this book is translated by the scribes of Basgiath College from the original Navarrian text. It has been adapted to your culture or whatever. Like they lampshade up front that this is going to have some pretty significant like voice problems, I think. But it still doesn't work. Like, I know that this is what they said. I accept this. I think it's actually kind of a neat world building thing, but I still think it's kind of stupid. Like when Violet has her little rider shoes at the parapet scene, she looks back at Rhiannon and she's like, "What size shoe are you?" And Rhiannon says size 8. And those are American women's shoe sizes. Something about that really didn't sit with me. She makes a reference to like a 90s game show. She says Xaden chose door number 2. And then like she says for the win at least twice. Now I want to ask, did she say for the win in the second half?
Not that I recall, but there were a couple of phrases that I circled and I was like, millennial neolib woman.
Yeah. right. And that manifests very weirdly, even though we know that this is supposed to be like an adapted work in translation. I don't have a solution for it, but it's just kind of weird. Funny that you mentioned the Irish names, because pardon my caucasity, Joshua, but where are these people from?
Which people?
In relation to each other, I mean. Like, so are vaguely Gaelic names like Rhiannon and Imogen from a different ethnic group than the Greek as hell Dane Aitos? Or like the Viking-adjacent Sorrengail and Ryerson?
I do not know about that. I don't know enough about Ireland to answer that. The only reason that I know that Ireland is sometimes referred to as the island in like Irish culture is because it comes up in like some traditional Irish music, which I've played from time to time.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you anything more about the culture of Ireland than that.
Gotcha. Maybe Rebecca said, "Oh, Dane was from the let me look at the map. The Aritia province, and whereas Xaden was from Tyr." Or like, I don't know, like it just bugged me. There's like a character named Oriel who has a brother named Chase. And I know those are both French names, but they sound so incredibly different to an American ear. It just, there's a lot going on.
That is really weird. I wonder if that's like a thing that she's given herself license to do by nature of the book being quote unquote translated into contemporary American English.
I guess. So Violet, after getting out of the parapet, finds Dane, who tries to send her back to the Scribe Quadrant in like secret. But at this point, she feels like her mother will track her down and find her if she does. So she just decides to press on. And like literally 67 freaking people died on a stupid bridge. Like, what the hell? How does this bridge so bad?
That seems like a huge waste of potential students. I mean, I don't know that like your footing on a bridge on one particular day is necessarily representative of your capacity to be a successful dragon rider. Those seem like skill sets that like have a little bit of overlap, but not enough to justify murder.
Well, we can't have weakness in our classes, Joshua, not with so few dragons willing to bond. And dragons only bond with the strongest of us. So if you can't walk across the parapet, you're just going to have to die horribly.
So is strength like being able to walk good?
Yes, it's part of the coordination. You need stamina to go with strength usually when you're doing a strength build. Okay,
you need somebody that can hold the Wii remote level during the tightrope walking mini game.
Correct. Okay, so Dane is a wing leader of the squadron or whatever, and so is Xaden. Violet and Rhiannon were going to be in second wing under Dane, but then Xaden moves her to his wing. Dun dun dun. And that's how they start to see each other a little bit more often. Like, this is proposed as a threat because a wing leader can like pretty much do whatever he wants to his cadets, like murder them. So she sees this as like him abusing the power structure in order to hurt her, which, you know, we have no reason to believe is not the case.
All right. Okay.
There is this weird like time skip. It goes right from that point to like the first day of classes, and I like that, and I also don't, because we skip all the meet cutes for the minor characters, but at the same time, you're like, who the hell are all these people that Violet suddenly has opinions and friendships with? But that kind of gets fed in, and she's got Rhiannon as her friend, and then there's this guy named Rydok, who is like Steve from Empress Teresa. He is never funny. He's like supposed to be a comic relief character, but he just, I cannot describe how not funny he is. But he has a little funny thing to say for everything.
Yeah, it's like when if you're trying to be funny and you're not doing it ironically, like it's not gonna work.
Right. So at this school, there are fighting classes, there are history classes, and then like war updates. I think they call it battle briefing. As a former scribe, Violet knows a lot about history, but she consistently just like gets the shit beaten out of her in all of her fighting classes, especially by like Imogen, this kid of another rebel who also blames Violet's family for her parents' death, rightfully so, because Violet's family murdered her parents, so she's not wrong.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah, and Dane spends a lot of time sowing fear of Xaden and Violet, and we're told over and over again that Xaden wants to kill her. They have this moment where Dane is like saying, "Oh, Violet, we're in secret now, but you should totally like not talk to Xaden." And Xaden comes up behind him like, "What's up, guys?" And then they run away like he's a monster or something. It's very interesting.
What?
Yeah, it's the whole time as the politics get revealed that, you know, these are the children of rebel leaders who, how for whatever reason, their parents rebelled, their parents were murdered, and then they were forcibly conscripted into the army of the victors. So I kind of wanted Xaden to kill Violet the entire time. And I know if you clip that out of context, you're gonna think like I'm saying, I hated Twilight, I wanted Bella to literally die. But like, no, I like Violet a lot as a POV character. She's fine. Like, the worst thing she is nothing. I just support Xaden politically, I guess. I really feel a lot of sympathy for these rebel kids. I don't know if you have the same sentiments as I do.
Oh, I can't answer fully. I disagree, but I can't tell you why.
Well, it is not only morally justifiable, but dare I say based to take revenge against people who've wronged you. So I just like, it added a lot of intrigue to their developing relationship. Anyways.
Okay, what I will say is abstractly, I don't like this sins of the father logic that you're imposing on the world. It's a little too biblical for me. I don't know what killing Violet would materially improve about the lives of these poor conscripted children.
Well, they're like slave soldiers. Like, they have to get their comeuppance somehow.
I mean, killing Violet isn't going to fix that.
It might be the shot heard around the world, Joshua. You never know. So Violet decides that her physical weakness can be overcome with her intelligence. She is going to strategically poison all of her upcoming fighting class opponents. And this leads to this really fun and games montage where she has a thing up her sleeve for like every fight that she gets in. But we have this scene where she's sneaking out, gathering ingredients, and she encounters a group of rebel kids meeting in secret. It is like a capital offense for more than 3 of them to convene at one time for any reason. And then there's like a handful of them here. So this is like super secret, risky meeting. And she doesn't hear the entire conversation, but it seems like they're just discussing survival strategies. And then someone brings up killing Violet, and Xaden's like, "Leave her to me. I'm going to handle her." So the group disperses kind of unceremoniously. Xaden notices that Violet was watching. They have this like flirt fight, but then they both kind of walk away, not going to tell on one another.
So is that the first time they flirt?
I would say probably. I mean, all of his little comments are laced with a little bit of attraction, but I think this is like the first point where they really talk one-on-one in private. So a lot of that stuff gets brought to the fore.
And they just, even though like they're supposed to be mortal enemies, they just kind of start flirting apropos of nothing. Like it's based purely on raw physical attraction.
I will give Rebecca the credit that it works. It works better than I'm describing it. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah, the fun and games montage goes on. Dragon exposition. Rydok is not funny. And then there's this last minute sub out where Violet poisoned one of her opponents too well, and the substitute is Xaden. And this, I would say, is probably the first, like, on paper flirting. I love this scene. I love the romantic tension. I love that he's, like, legitimately teaching her how to fight and, like, saying you can't poison all of your enemies. And it's just super compelling the way that this is handled. But it just kind of ends. Violet gets defeated, but it's like in a sexy way.
This is also not a spoiler, but she also poisons her like hand-to-hand combat opponents in the second half. A couple.
That's one accuracy point for me.
Okay, I mean it's like it's in ways that don't matter, but it's a thing that she mentions doing. And is she just allowed to do that? Like when they're supposed to be punching each other, she's allowed to.
No, she does it clandestinely.
Okay, it was so not clear to me whether or not she was allowed to be doing that because all her friends were kind of on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they all are just in on it.
Right, they're all in on it, exactly.
Okay. So when does she bond with her dragon?
Dude, we're getting there. So yeah, there's a gauntlet. It's not important. It's just like a jungle gym. Violet gets through it by using her wits. Then they have to walk through a field of dragons. And I do not understand this scene at all. And don't get me wrong, I think that this is a really cool scene. I like this scene. What I mean by I don't understand it is the humans have this cargo cult mentality about dragons. And I don't know, they're like, this is what I mean by an improved Lightlark. Remember at the end of that when one of my suggestions was explain everything weird that they're doing away by saying that there is a magical orb telling them what to do that they barely understand.
Yeah, that they can't really argue with because it's so ineffable.
Right. The dragons here are the orb. They're like, yeah, we have to walk in this field through all these dragons. Don't know why. Sorry. Walk in groups because if you don't walk in groups, they're going to incinerate you. Have idle chatter so they see if you're friends with each other, but don't be too idle. And then like, it's so bizarre. It's so interesting. And you can tell that this is like a cargo cult. Like they barely understand what these dragons want and they're just doing their best. So a few people get incinerated, but it doesn't really matter. Because then there's a second actual choosening where you like, it's like a Pokemon Go game where you walk around and you try to find a dragon who will bond with you. This is separate from walking through the field of dragons.
Okay. All right.
Then like Jack and like Orin, maybe Jack wasn't there, but like all the bully type characters are trying to kill this one golden dragon, which is a feathertail, which is like a pacifist breed of dragons, and it's very, very small and frail. And they're just like, we need to kill this dragon because we're crazy bullies. And at great personal risk, Violet saves the golden dragon, which gets the attention and respect of the biggest, most awesomest, giantest dragon ever that no one would ever think would bond with anyone again. His name is Tairn, and he's awesome, and I love him. She gets 2 dragons. Oh my god, it's never happened before. She's so special. This is amazing. She gets the golden dragon and Darna and Tairn, the black dragon. I can't talk with you about this too much right now without getting into spoilers, but I'm not turned off completely by the fact that she gets 2 dragons, but it's the same problem as with Rintung and Dorner, where there is like no sense of precedent. Has this really never happened in the history of the world ever? It's really messianic for the scope that they're setting with Fourth Wing at this point. I don't know. It would be nice if there were like an ancient hero who had 2 dragons, or if there were a prophecy which had been foretold about someone getting 2 dragons, just so like it's not literally random and unprecedented. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I love those solutions because I feel like it's jumping from unprecedented and random into like cliched plot structures that are a little bit overly familiar.
Oh no. Cliched plot structures in Fourth Wing.
We don't want those, no matter where they are.
It's not, okay, it's just a trope. It's just like, I mean...
Yeah, but it's like, if you're not going to do anything with the trope, then why have it?
I trust Rebecca to do something with the trope.
Like, because then you're going to have to bring the hero back.
Okay, well, okay, this is less precedent than the Bible gave Jesus to have her have 2 dragons. Her mom's like so spellbound by this giant dragon and the other golden dragon, and like Violet's like I hate my mom. She's not even looking at me. And of course she's not looking at her because there's two dragons bonding with the same person. Like, this is the craziest thing in the world to ever happen. Of course she's not staring at you right now. Anyways, twist time. The black dragon Tarn is the mate of Xaden's dragon, which means that they can't be apart for more than like a couple days at a time, or they like die or something. I don't know. But I love the dragons, especially Tarn. Tarn's like this crotchety old man, and they have like this psychic link with Violet, and they can all kind of talk with each other. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah, so like the writers are like affected by their dragon's emotions, right?
Yeah.
But then because she and Xaden are now linked via their dragon's romantic, sexual, matrimonial relationship, like it complicates their internal feelings about each other as well, right?
Ooh, that is a very interesting fold, and not even something that I incorporated into my predictions. That brings a lot of stuff about like consent into the equation.
It does,
Wow.
doesn't it?
Wow. Okay. Anyways, a lot of the stuff that follows is another like endless montage of classes, but now they're all dragon focused. People's signet powers, which is like the magic you can channel through a dragon, but a dragon can't use on its own. They manifest in all of these new writers with varying levels of bullshit. At the time that I had to leave off, I think only a couple people had gotten their powers. And then like there was one guy who like was a psychic and could read minds. And while he discovered his powers, one of the professors like literally snapped his neck and just went on with his life. So, lots of weird stuff there.
Did they talk about that at all in your half? I
mean, they said it was like a illegal or a taboo, like you're not supposed to be an intrinsic or whatever it was.
Okay, yeah. They say that one more time in the second half. I guess they just wanted to reiterate that like being able to read minds is like so bad. Illegal that if they find out you can do it, they just kill you.
They just gotta kill you, which is again really interesting societal detail. This is small, but pretty much to have like a save the cat beat, Violet goes to the archives and like reminisces on her character arc hitherto. She tries to find a book on wyverns, like an old storybook that she loves so much, but like the archivist, who's an old friend of hers, says that no such book exists. And so that's like a little weird mystery. There are some writing classes. They're pretty mundane. Violet's just like not very good at writing, but she refuses to use magic to tether herself because she wants to like challenge herself somehow, and that results in her falling a bunch. So paradigms kind of change, but not really, because everyone already kind of wanted to kill Violet because she was weak, and now they want to kill Violet because she's weak and she has really cool badass dragons. So, case in point, she is woken up in her sleep by Tarn, who's like, you gotta wake up or you're going to die. And there are like 6 people in her room in the middle of the night, and they are like going to murder her because they want the off chance that Tarn would think that's badass and choose to bond with them instead. Xaden swoops in at the last second, uses his crazy shadow powers, which he has through his dragon, to like choke them all out, but one person escapes. At roll call the next day, Xaden says, I accuse you, Amber Mavis, who was a character I did not even know existed until recently. You are the one who orchestrated this whole thing. And she basically like up and admits to it and gets incinerated.
So Amber's not a member of their friend group before she partakes in the assassination attempt?
I make a formal plea to the judges for clemency on the small minor characters because she probably was, but the problem is all the minor characters are less characters than skins that you can put on a puppet for one given scene. There's like a archetype of side character, friend character, bully character. Like that's especially bad because like Jack and Orin are like the exact same person. Probably she was. I've seen the name come up before, but I couldn't tell you anything about her personality until she got incinerated.
Okay, Because the way they talk about her in the second half, they make it sound like her betrayal was a betrayal and not just like a random attack. It's like,
okay.
Amber, we knew ye and we loved you, and then you turned on us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she wasn't like a bully archetype at any point. She might have hooked up with Rhiannon once, if I'm remembering correctly. I honestly don't know. I focus on the obstacle course running up the side of a cliff. It looks more like a death trap than an adrenaline rush, but sure, we can go with that. Positive thinking for the win, right? So I know that was a long introduction, but I wanted to make sure that absolutely every base I had was covered, because there's some weird thing going on where people who find out that I'm doing an episode on this book have gotten like mad at me and defensive of this book. And like, I want to be completely clear here. I loved this book.
All right, Andrew. Imagine you've stepped into my storefront on a bleak fall day. Outside, the trees are skeletal, grasping towards the blank sky.
Wow, you're such a poet.
The fingers of desiccated leaves scrape across the merciless concrete. I'm also there.
Okay.
And you've read the first half of Rebecca Yarros' Fourth Wing. I almost said Light Lark. And you didn't read the second half. And you want me now to tell you how it's going to end.
With your powers.
To which I say, oh, Andrew, there's nothing I can tell you. But the cards, they see all.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna draw 3 cards. And they're gonna write the ending of Fourth Wing for us. All right, first pull. Ooh, the Magician reversed. Okay, I like that. So we're leaving off at the middle of the book. Major turn has just occurred, yes?
Yes, major.
So the Magician is a card that's sort of like the master of all 4 of the minor arcana. He's got the wand, he's got the sword, he's got the cups, he's got the pentacles. It's like a character that's like very curious. So when it's inverted like this, it means there's like a misuse of power. So I think what that means is like there's about to be like in a book, imagine there's a betrayal, right? The last thing you're expecting is another immediate betrayal.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I think what this card is telling me is that a trusted character, let's go with Dane, he is like, hey, Violet, we need to talk because there's been an assassination attempt and I think there's about to be another one. I am going to put somebody in charge of protecting you at all times. That person will be...
I forgot to mention Liam. I know about Liam.
Okay, so he puts Liam in charge of protecting Violet, yes?
Yep. So that's already accurate, yeah.
Yep. So I think what happens next is like a couple weeks pass, Liam gets close to Violet, and then like he turns on her like it's no big deal.
Ooh, yeah.
He tries to kill her, and this time it's not Xaden that saves her, but Dane.
Ooh.
Now they've both saved her one time.
Right.
And so she's questioning
which one
who's the right guy for her.
Yep.
Okay. Second card. The Chariot upright. Okay, another major arcana. So we're hitting another major plot point right off of the heels of these last 2. This is a card that usually follows like a victory, and it means that like now we're striding towards a new challenge. Mm-hmm. So I think how I'm reading it in this case is the victory is together Violet and Dane have overcome the threat of Liam. And the next challenge is, the school war games thingy that they're doing is progressing, right? And so Violet now has to choose. She's giving an opportunity to decide whose like squadron she's going to be on. Like this provides an opportunity for her to like maybe leave Xaden's for Dane's.
Okay.
I mean, Xaden saved her that one time, but like he did it using shadow powers, which seems pretty evil. Long story short, she ends up deciding she's going to join Dane's squad, and she turns her back on Xaden forever. All right, third card, final card. The 5 of Pentacles. All right. So this was a mistake. Obviously, this was a mistake, right?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Dane seems like a nice guy, but he's also the person who put Liam in charge of protecting her. Mm. He pretended not to know that Liam's plot was to kill her all along, but of course he knew and he was in on it. There's a very material consequence in line with the materiality of the Pentacles. of Violet's bad choice to align herself with Dane, and that's that Andarna dies.
Ooh, okay.
Andarna dies, but because she has another dragon that she's still bonded to, Andarna's death does not lead to her death.
I see.
She is weakened. She does not get powers like the rest of the characters do because she only has the one dragon, right? She's like basically even further disadvantaged in terms of like military fighting strength. However, she finds comfort in Xaden, and they end up together. And that's where the novel leaves off. They graduate together, the war is ramping up, they're about to be deployed, but they're together, and they have that stability.
Okay. Wow, you need to use tarot cards to help me plot my books, Joshua.
Okay.
That was a perfectly serviceable prediction. I think it is a worthy contender to mine. Like, I could see that being where this book goes. That's not what I said, but I think that's completely valid.
Okay.
This is actually really fun. I'm kind of excited by this.
Before I hear your predictions, let me ask you 3 questions that I have crafted in response to the second half.
I have to use your mind games to see which ones are real and which ones are red herrings.
Yep. Let's start with a low-stakes one. Which character turns out to be closeted?
Rhydock.
Okay.
Easy.
Who does Violet end up with?
Xaden, easy. Well, neither, but mostly Xaden, because there's the sequel.
Okay.
75% Xaden.
75%. Okay, so there's like ambiguity.
Yeah, because there's the sequel.
Right. Okay, makes sense. What happens between Violet and Liam at the pre-graduation ball?
He makes a pass at her, and Xaden reprimands him most harshly, maybe kills him.
Oh, I love that. Okay. I'm going to give you a 3rd score out of 10 for those 3.
Awesome. All right. So, with that out of the way, it is time for my prediction for what happens in Rebecca's wonderful novel, Fourth Wing, which she brought to us for critique and review, as all authors of the English Club do.
Yep. By hand, delivered, in person, as is required
right.
by the pact.
By the pact! The club covenant that they make us make for all the clubs. So, this is a doozy, Joshua. So, sit back, open up a can of Soylent, and grab your favorite Funko Pop, because we need to talk about Marvel's The Avengers.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Ernest Cline, but sure, same thing, I guess.
That too. I can't carry a tune, or even decently hum, so singing for a distraction is out, but I am a scholar. There's nowhere as calming as the archives, so that's what I think of. Facts and logic.
Oh, Rebecca, the spirit of Ben Shapiro lives on through thee.
This book is setting up to be a very bloated, lopsided story. I do not mean this as a criticism. This is a very specific plot structure, which I mainly associate with the first Avengers. There's probably a term for it, but let's call it bloaty bang bang stories.
Okay.
So
catchy.
You drop us into a situation with a bunch of characters that we already know pretty well, and then there's a string of ostensibly related events that happen in the first half, all in service of a fireworks show that takes up pretty much the entire second half. There's not even a plot. You're here for the show. So what, you might ask, is the fireworks here? For the Avengers, it was the big fight. For Fourth Wing, it's Xaden and Violet's relationship moving from enemies to lovers. That is the promise that we were given from the very beginning.
Oh boy.
It should be 100%, 10 out of 10 accuracy points just for me to say Violet and Xaden have sex a bunch and then the book ends. But you can also say the same thing. You could say the Avengers fight a bunch and the movie ends.
Oh yeah, if you want to be cynical.
Right, exactly. In both cases, there's a lot more work going on under the hood. Mainly, you have to set up all of these lucrative sequels. And I also think that Yarros has a lot more control over Fourth Wing's IP than Joss Whedon has. So I'm going to give her credit and say that she's going to be more intelligent about doing this. So let's use that bloaty bang bang story skeleton and cover it in the meat of my predictions. Let us begin. Scene. Exterior. Basgiath College. Violet stares in shock at the pile of ash that used to be Amber Mavis, a woman who organized an attempt on her life. As the dragon Clyde mourns her rider, Xaden ushers her away into darkness. She looks back at the training yard. Almost against her will, a sense of ease creeps over her. One she probably hasn't felt before in her life. She may never be physically strong, and intelligence may not win her every single fight, but now, possibly for the first time ever, she has allies. People and dragons who, for whatever reason, value her safety and are willing to fight to protect her. And this sentiment permeates the entire rest of the story for Violet. Now, I can see how you might be worried what I'm proposing is a villain arc, but I'm not. It might get close, but Yarros wouldn't do that, and it just doesn't fit logically to have Violet wrap from pure pacifist to villain. I mean, Amber broke into her room and would have murdered her in her sleep on the off chance that her dragon feels like that's a badass move and decides to bond with her. Violet says something like, oh, maybe Amber and I could work out our problems by talking it out. Like, it's ridiculous for Violet to think that, and I think she starts to realize this in the beginning of the second half. So, that night, Xaden comes into her room and says, I fired Liam. I don't want anyone to protect you but me. And then they have sex for the first time. Xaden is the most perfect lover ever, but it's so wrong because of their sordid family history. And after the most amazing and gruesomely described sex ever, Violet just can't handle this wave of emotion, and she's like, you have to leave. And then Xaden says something snarky like, what, was I not good enough for you? But then he leaves because ultimately Xaden does respect consent and boundaries. And then Violet's last line for the chapter is like, I didn't make him leave because he wasn't good enough for me. I made him leave because I wanted him. I wanted him too much. So, that's the beginning of Xaden and Violet as a romantic unit. The next day, there's a flight school, and Xaden and Violet ride their dragons together romantically. We hear about all the white cliffs of Dralor and
of Drover.
And I can't believe I didn't notice that. And Violet says something like, I swear to God, I bet 2 accuracy points that she says, riding our dragons together was almost sexier than having sex with him. Almost.
Okay, you've lost 2 accuracy points.
God
She does not say that.
I was so sure. Oh, well.
That is an improvement, though, over the quips that the book does include, so I'll give you 2 improvement points for that.
Perfect. Okay, net 0. I love it. So this pretty much clears the air between them and opens up their romance in earnest. So I'm going to call what comes next after this a fun and games montage, but it's really, if we're being honest here, a fun and games almost entire rest of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I predict there will be a swirling carousel of Rhiannon and Rhydock teasing Violet for her hickey of the day, magic classes, fighting with magic classes, writing classes, the whole works. The twist is, the elevation of this is, I want this to be chiasmatic with the first fun and games montage where she's poisoning everyone. So Violet's spending a lot of time with the revolutionary kids by virtue of the fact that she has to stay near Xaden, and now they're kind of an item anyways. And then she uses her knowledge of like apothecariness to, I don't know, make like anti-air sickness tonics for everyone, and then makes fantasy Adderall for Rhiannon to study history better. I want her to continue to use her botany skills for different purposes.
Oh, that would be so cute. I love that.
Oh God, you said would be. Shit. All the while, Xaden and Violet have a lot of sex. There is more sex than like punctuation marks. And it is going to be very, very graphic. she matriculates into the Academy of Carnal Banana Art, and she graduates with honors all over her groinal nucleus unigash. We all know that this is where the book is going. We know it through cultural osmosis. There's going to be a lot. But I did have it spoiled for me. I didn't read this, but I knew through cultural osmosis as well that she and Xaden have like really awesome sex because their dragons are in heat and also having sex with each other. So I know that's there. I put it in that position in the story, which I think is really, really cool, really awesome that you did that. I love the Omegaverse implications. Super awesome.
Yeah, it's a little furry coated.
A little furry coated, a little scaly coated. Violet is not only getting really tight with Xaden, she's spending a lot of time with these revolutionaries. And in this, they all become very, very powerful, especially Xaden and Violet. Like, people are shying away from them out of fear. Mostly it's bad guys like Jack start to lay off of her now that she has, like, Xaden behind her. But, like, it comes to the point where even Rhiannon and Rhydock are afraid of sitting with them. Xaden's kind of used to this because he's, like, this badass, mopey man. But remember, this is not Violet's villain arc, so she really has mixed feelings about this. She just got so caught up in having a safety net that she didn't realize that she was wielding her power like this, like, and I mean social power. But meanwhile, Violet can't help but notice that Dane has a lot more friends than usual. He's spending a lot of time with the bully archetypes, the particularly violent writers. At first, as a disciplinarian, we see Dane reprimanding Jack for breaking someone's neck too hard or something. But then people in Jack's circle start to actively seek out Dane in order to settle petty disputes or to just learn from him and his knowledge of rules and regulations. I didn't talk too much about this in the first half, but something that really turns Violet away from Dane is how preoccupied he is with the rules and with the right way of doing things. And these characters start to take to that, start to seek it out. So this all comes to a head when our fun and games montage hits a sour note. It is another sparring day, and then Violet gets paired with Jack Barlow. And my prediction is Jack's signet is he can punch really hard. Like, basically super strength, but Yarros is too smart for that. She's going to make it something more interesting, like only Violet energy is amplified when he uses his powers. He can't just be strong for no reason. So Violet is prepared to get, like, murdered, but she notices pretty quickly that this is not the Jack that was raging across the parapet trying to kill her. This guy is measured, precise, fair, and this somehow makes him all the more terrifying. She loses fair and square, and Jack thanks her for an excellent match. Dane looks on proudly. See, my vision for Dane is that he is like a more put-together version of Chuck from Better Call Saul, which I know you also don't get that reference, Joshua, but for our visitors, he is obsessed with the rule of law, and he's never wrong in a way that makes him more, like, annoying and sinister than moral. He has this kind of messianic reputation with these formerly violent people, and this illustrates to us and Violet how the system turns troubled proto-fascists into normal fascists. Montage, sex, dragon rituals that make no sense. If you need a specific one, Scale, who is Xaden's dragon, and Tairn are doing, like, the dragon equivalent of renewing their vows, and then they adopt Indarna, and then there's, like, a dragon parade. They just walk around with their dragons a bunch, and that's, like, a big old celebration.
Did they not adopt Andarna in the first part?
Not really. They just kind of hang out.
Okay, I kind of thought that they had already done that.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, maybe they had, and I just forgot about it. I don't know.
Okay, well, the way that like Andarna is always like around them made it seem like she was like a adopted kid essentially.
Oh yeah, no, that's the case here. I just thought there would be somewhere where they formalized that. Then there's another weird scene. All of a sudden, Battle Brief becomes a really boring class. In the beginning, there was a couple, maybe at least one scene where they were learning like about troop movements, and then Violet could demonstrate her knowledge of like tactics and where griffins may or may not be in this stupid war that they're having. And suddenly, the professor just talks about basic stuff. There's just some movement, no excitement on the border. And Violet's smart enough to know that no news is worse than bad news. But she gets stonewalled out of asking any real questions to her professors. And then, since this is Light Lark but better, I'm going to assume that there is a library heist scene at some point. We've already had the archives teased to us a couple times. Let's say Violet knows that this book about wyverns exists, for example, because she had it as a child, and she uses her new strengthen abilities to sneak into the forbidden section of the archives.
Yes.
And Darna can stop time or whatever. Maybe she uses that a couple times.
Okay.
Well, maybe not, because it like hurts Andarna. But she sneaks into the archives forbidden section. She knows it's a capital offense or something stupid. She's cut off from her dragons in Xaden because the archives are in like a Faraday cage, the forbidden section at least. And she sees the book in question on like a podium across a hallway. But then who should stop her but my boy, Dane Itos. And then Violet's like, please don't tell anyone. And Dane's like, I don't care. I just want to have sex with you a lot. And Violet says, well, I still am residually attracted to you, but I don't like the power dynamic that we're creating here. I mean, you could literally narc on me for being here if I refuse you, and that would be like killing me. And Dane's like, you know what, totally fair. I still want to be a viable love interest, so I won't tell anyone, but we also don't need to have sex in this library. Just get out. So Violet leaves empty-handed.
Chivalry's not dead.
Chivalry is not dead.
God.
Dane, I want Dane to like really dip into villain territory, but I don't want to nullify him as a romantic interest.
I mean, that's really grim.
No, it's like he's like, sorry, yeah, I really didn't understand the power dynamic here. You can go.
He didn't know what blackmail was.
Well, he didn't present it that way. He's just like, I knew you were here. I wanted to have sex with you. It's not so crazy. I don't know. You're right. I definitely did not think that prediction through, but she tries to heist the library. She gets interrupted. She escapes by the skin of her teeth. That's the beats that I'm trying to establish here. The next day, she and Xaden and some of their revolutionary friends are interrupted with summons to the high courts of Basgiath to answer for a capital crime. So, like we established in part 1, it is a capital offense for more than 3 revolutionary kids to convene at one time. Dane narcs on them for having 4 whole insurrectionist kids meeting up at once. So, there's going to be some kind of trial scene where Violet is thrust against the entire force of Basgiath College, and I don't know, like Dane doesn't want to go for the death penalty, but I bet that professor who snapped that psychic dude's head comes back, and like he's going straight for the electric chair. And Violet gives some like badass YA female protagonist speech about justice and strength or whatever, but then gets the guilty verdict anyways. This is her all is lost moment. She is completely severed from Basgiath College. She is awaiting her death. But then Rhiannon and Rhydock help them escape. Dane helps too somehow, so we know that he's not unredeemable, and Darna helps with her time powers. Fight scene. Dragons burst in through the walls. Xaden, Violet, and the other Tirish Rebellion people barely escape Basgiath, vowing to make their wars on the former college. So,
okay,
I'm not clear on those specific details, but what I want to get across is that the power structure and society that Basgiath represents has to be addressed and has to be acknowledged that this is not a good thing. This is not something we need to just accept on face value. So Violet can't remain in this paradigm as a YA protagonist. She has to cross some kind of Rubicon in relation to the revolutionary kids, and that is going to make her persona non grata for the college, and she is going to have to leave somehow, like, on pain of death. So
yeah, she's got to upend the system, man.
So, back in my universe, all the escapees fly away. The rebellion kids know of some safe space on the frontier somewhere. So, Violet is so sheltered that she hasn't seen the Navarrian countrysides before. She could never really have imagined them accurately. Not even in, dun dun dun, her worst nightmares. The entire country is in ruins. Charred fields roll by. Houses are blackened if they even stand at all. Bodies of dragon and man alike lie in ashes like stone monuments to a war that Violet never realized was so close. But our escapees press on. Maybe there's a scene of them like checking out the safe space that they knew about, only to find that's in ruins too. But then Joshua, then my real twist comes in. They're attacked by a wyvern, and then they're saved by a griffin.
Oh no. But the enemy flies griffins, Andrew.
You're so true, King. The griffin's rider is someone important that, like, is mentioned before. Let's just say it's Mira, because I think that's the most exciting option of our pool of minor characters.
Yeah.
There's a little meet cute, but there's no time to explain. We overhear this exchange between Mira and Xaden. It's clear that Mira doesn't trust him and doesn't like him, just like she did in Chapter 1, but not because he's the son of this revolutionary guy. It's because he's committed some act in this secret war against the wyverns that she doesn't approve of. So Mira leads them to some camp on the border, and they meet some minor characters who will be important in Iron Flame. Violet and Xaden have some more sex, but that's not it, Joshua. Suddenly, Dane and Violet have this Raylo-ass connection where they can, like, telepathically communicate with each other. And Violet is woken up by this message. This is Dane. I'm communicating with you with some bullshit signet Yarros just made up right now and will forget about right after this scene. Xaden is lying to you. But Violet calls BS immediately, because she's better than that. But then Dane says, ask him why he killed Darna's parents, why he had her bond with you. And scene. That is the last normal chapter. The last thing is another thing that got spoiled for me. The last chapter is in Xaden's point of view. That's all I know. Back to the prediction. The entire chapter, we get nothing relevant about the cliffhanger in the penultimate chapter. Xaden is just gushing about how Violet is the most beautiful, wonderful, strong woman in the entire world, and the fact that she doesn't know it only makes her more beautiful, wonderful, and strong. Then Violet appears in all her beauty, wonder, and strength and asks him the question he never thought she would ask. Then the last line is some, like, YA singer. The blood drains from Xaden's face, or he releases a breath that he didn't know he was holding. And then Xaden says, it's time for you to know the truth about what my father's rebellion was really about. Ooh, wah, ah, ah, da 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 da. Roll credits. We're prepared for Iron Flame.
Okay. Do you want to hear what actually happens?
Yeah, let's go right into the truth.
I don't bother with breakfast, but I pay close attention to every single thing on Jack's tray as I walk by, noting what's there and what isn't. My heart pounds a chaotic, nauseating rhythm by the time all 81 of the surviving first years gather in the gym. And then this is post-fight. What the hell is wrong with him? Someone asks as Jack writhes. Oranges, I whisper to Riddick as my body finally gives out. He's allergic. to oranges. I fall into nothingness. Okay, as we talked about, right at the beginning of the tarot cards prediction, Liam is assigned to guard Violet 24/7, right?
Right.
This is for her protection because they are worried that there's going to be more assassination attempts. For about 50 pages after that happens, nothing happens except they are doing lots of hand-to-hand combat training, and Violet is, like, making sex eyes at Xaden, and he's kind of making them back.
It's not like actual sex?
Nope.
Wow, I thought they'd jump right into it.
Nope. Mm-mm. Nope.
Dang it.
So from the halfway point, they just, like, make sex eyes at each other, and she talks about how much she loves his beautiful abs, and, like, how all the muscles are, like, so precise or whatever. It's, like, the description is, like, very familiar, I'll say. I won't call it, like, cliche necessarily, but it's, like, nothing remotely surprising in terms of, like, the actual imagery being deployed. The real first plot beat that happens that's significant is one night, Violet and Xaden's dragons are having sex, which makes them both super horny. They're not together at the time, but,
That's the first time?
Yes.
What?
So they're not together when this happens. Violet doesn't realize what's happening at first, but, like, she knows that she's, like, super horny, and then she goes looking for Xaden, and she finds him brooding outside, and he tells her what's going on, and he's like, we can't have sex under these, like, circumstances because that would be, like, very dubious, like, ethically. But they do make out, and then he teaches her how to ground herself and, like, separate her own feelings from Terns. So, like, she gains, like, a little minor magical ability. The next day, Dane pulls Violet aside to warn her about Xaden being really dangerous, which I guess is a thing that's been happening throughout the book.
Yes, repeatedly.
Okay, this is going to be a theme then, because there's a lot of scenes that are just reiterations of scenes that have occurred. I guess they're meant to, like, remind you of, like, what's happening, like, that this is an important plot point, but it's really annoying. There's even a point where, like, after the third or fourth scene where Xaden and Violet just eye-bang each other for, like, 10 pages, I wrote, like, this novel needs to have new types of scenes. Because, like, the stakes they're not raised, the plot isn't really moved forward, like, maybe in very small ways, but nothing really happens. So this is one of those scenes where Dane is like, Xaden's so dangerous, you can't trust him. But he's really pushy about it and, like, kind of mean and condescending, and it ends up driving him and Violet, like, kind of apart.
Wow, that is literally what happened in the first half, beat for beat.
Okay, so then there's, like, a time skip, and for some reason, I guess it's, like, part of their sparring rotation, Violet and Jack have to fight.
Yes!
Yeah, you got this right. Well, that part of it.
That one part.
Everyone takes it for granted that, like, he's just gonna kill her. Like, he's just gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so assured. But she does manage to win. Would you like to guess how?
Oh, she knuckle dusts herself with poison.
That would be so cool, but no. She poisons him with oranges.
Oranges? Is he allergic?
He's allergic to oranges.
Can you be allergic to oranges?
Do you want to guess how she figures out he's allergic to oranges?
Okay. So in a adjacent mealtime scene, Jack is like, there's oranges in my bowl. I am allergic to oranges.
No, it's way stupider.
Oh, gosh.
She watches what he eats for, like, a couple weeks preceding the fight and notices that he doesn't eat any citrus.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
He could just, like, not like citrus.
So, Andrew, let's...
Rebecca!
Hey, Andrew, wait, hold on. Before you yell at Rebecca...
Fine.
You can yell at Rebecca, and please feel free to do so. But first I need to ask you something.
Yeah.
So, imagine that you and I had to fight to the death.
Yes, I'm ready. I think about it every night.
Okay, yeah, me too. And you were planning how you were going to poison me during the fight.
Yes.
But in the preceding days, you're observing my mealtime habits. And you notice that I don't eat certain things.
Yes.
Okay, so what would that thing be, first of all?
Animal products, meat.
Yeah. So what do you think would happen if we were in a fight and then you, like, forced meat into my mouth while we were fighting?
I think you'd mostly just be annoyed.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't kill you. I wouldn't think it would kill you.
It would, no. You wouldn't assume that just because someone doesn't eat something that they're deadly allergic to it. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
This is nonsense.
That's really funny, Joshua.
Yeah, so she forces, she has, like, a little vial, and she smashes it against his teeth, and it's full of orange juice. And then he collapses.
Rebecca, that is You didn't do anything like this in part 1. What the hell?
She could have just used, like, human poison for humans.
Or use mycene. The thing that I came up with was the dumbest off-the-cuff thing I could come up with, and that was still better.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, that's cool. So does Jack die?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Okay, so then there's like a succession of Xaden and Violet flirting scenes.
Really? I thought they would get right into it. This is blowing my mind.
No, these scenes are so cheap and so one note. And when I say cheap, what I mean is like they're totally without ambition. Like they're not interested in building out the world or the characters or the themes of the book. It is just we are amping up the sexual tension so that you, reader, who may or may not be reading this book as an erotic experience, can prolong said experience. It's just so, like, it's so nothing. Like, it's like, just get to the point. Like, I'm reading this book, because it's a book. Like, do something in the book. Okay. So anyway, as part of the, like, inter-squad competition that, like, all of the wings are engaged in, the friend group is tasked with stealing something that would, like, put their side of the war at a serious disadvantage if it fell into the enemy's hands. So, they do a heist. So you got the heist.
Yes! But it's not a library heist.
No, it is not a library heist, but I like that you said there was a heist. And they do a thing that you said they would do, which is that, like, they use each of the characters' bullshit magic that, like, has a very specific use for its very specific use to steal a map from Violet's mom's office. And it's like the most up-to-date battle map of the frontiers of the war.
Okay.
So they steal that, and then the next day when they go to class and have to present what they stole, they unfurl the map, and like everyone in the class sees like what the most current battle situation is, and everyone's like, "Whoa, we can't see that! That's illegal!" And then they win.
Okay.
So, as a reward for winning that, they get to go on a field trip.
What?
Yeah, to the fort where Violet's sister is stationed.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody goes except Xaden for some reason. I forget why. But while they're there, Mira quizzes everybody on like battle tactics. She like lays out what the current situation is at this frontier fort, and she quizzes everybody on like how they would handle the situation next. And Dane and Violet like disagree, and Dane makes a fool of himself, and they are driven even further apart in the process. Then Griffins attack the fort, and they have to flee, leaving Violet's sister's fate ambiguous.
Oh.
Just kidding. We find out immediately that she's okay.
Oh, never mind. So I say Iron Flame.
Within the next couple pages. Like, there's like 5 pages where everyone's like, "We can't tell you what happened, Violet. It's top secret because the front lines are top secret." And then Violet like stares at a professor really hard, and he's like, "Okay, I'll tell you. She's fine." It's very weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
By virtue of like having flirted so much, Violet and Xaden then learn that they can communicate telepathically, and they use it to sext each other constantly. So now they can now instead of just making like eye sex at each other, they can like actually say what they want to do in their brains. So that's really fun.
That's stupid.
Then there's another war game challenge. It's basically capture the flag, but it's with dragons, obviously. Jack tries to kill Liam and almost succeeds, and he falls off his dragon, and then Andarna uses her time powers so that Violet has time to swoop down on Taryn and like snatch Liam out of the air as he's falling. And then Violet goes into a rage and kills Jack with her newly unlocked lightning powers. She just like...
What?
She just zaps him out of the air.
Ooh. Okay, I like lightning powers. That's fun.
It's very interesting for a second. So she kills Jack, and then for the next like 15 straight pages, she just keeps saying like she feels really bad about killing Jack. Like she's so bereaved over killing Jack and how she killed Jack and how it's sad she killed Jack and how she didn't want to kill Jack, and she did, and she killed Jack is dead, and she did it.
I hate how she killed Jack.
And she feels bad about how she did that thing, which was killing Jack.
Alive is a thing that Jack is not.
Right. And then the book moves on. There's no funeral for Jack. There's no follow-up from the lackeys. No, like, reaction from the other minor characters. All the other characters, like, when they react for, like, a second, and, of course, because they all are, like, little side characters that have, like, one personality trait.
Yeah.
Each of them is like, Jack was mean, I am glad that he is dead. That's it. He's just dead.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. Well, that's better than what I was thinking, which was nothing, so...
Okay, now they finally have sex.
Really?
So, Violet is really, really sad, and she's in her room, and Xaden is like, "No, you're too sexy to be sad." And she's like, I am sexy, but also sad. Do you want to make me just sexy? And then they find out that, like, when she comes, that makes the lightning happen, because when she comes, it makes the lightning happen.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about when she reaches sexually, that makes lightning happen.
Right.
And she can't really control where it strikes, so the first time it, like, sets a random part of the forest on fire, and they treat it as, like, a little haha joke.
What?
So now, from now on, Andrew, this is important.
Okay, I'm listening.
From now on, anytime that she wants to use her lightning powers, guess what she has to think about?
Sex.
Mm-hmm.
Xaden sex.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That, oh my... What?
Yeah. Isn't that nice?
I'm just baffled because, like, this is not the book that we started out with.
Yeah, so it's basically just porn with fantasy elements at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's a ball, and Xaden's not there, but Violet and her mom talk to the king, who's racist against the kids who were part of the rebellion, or whose parents were part of the rebellion, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Liam and Violet hang out at the ball, and they have this moment where she's like, Liam, you're like my best friend in the whole world. And he's like, I really feel like I've gotten to know you ever since I've been bodyguarding for you all the time. And then she ditches him so she can go fuck Xaden.
Oh, so nothing.
That's it. She goes to fuck him, and they fuck all night, and then they're fucking at 4 a.m. when the academy is under attack. Oh my god, it's under attack by griffins. Just kidding, it's not. They just woke everybody up so that they could send them on to the next phase of the war games, which is each battalion or wing is assigned a kind of like faux field mission.
Okay.
So they're deployed to like a part of the territory where like no combat is actually occurring, so that they can do combat against each other, like I guess like a scrimmage. And people can die, like people can be killed. But like the idea is to like win the game.
Right.
For some reason, and I don't know if I was totally clear on why she's allowed to choose, but Violet is like torn between going with Xaden and going with Dane. And Dane is like, don't do it. If you go with him, you will die. And she's like, Dane, you're so mean to me these days. I don't like you. Which is true. He has been very mean and very condescending. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But she barely knows Xaden. Like, they've just act a lot.
Right, yeah.
And, I should mention, because I've been skimming over that, but, like, he is a very giving lover. There's at least that.
Oh, well, that's good.
He's, like, very giving, but it's, how do I put this? There's no tenderness in their sex at all. Mm. It is all, like, steamy, pornographic, gross sex.
I see.
Of the sex books we've read so far, it is definitely the best described sex, I would say.
Okay.
And it's the least questionable in terms of like the ethics of it. And I like that the female participant is definitely enjoying herself, and there's no weird power dynamics like there were in Rintong and Dorner, or in Lightlark. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, and he seems like very into her, which I think is really good. And like she seems into her for her, which is nice.
That is nice.
But at the same time, like there's no tenderness to it. I don't know. I don't want to go too into it, but like I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all raunch.
All raunch.
Anyway, yeah. So she goes with Xaden, and they make a little stop on their way to their battle station, which is like a empty fort really far away. And they're about to have sex like behind some rocks.
Okay.
At this place that they've stopped. And then, oh my god, griffins show up. And then Xaden is like, put your pants on, Violet. And he stands up, and he goes over to the griffin riders, and he's like, you're early for a rendezvous. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh my god!
Surprise, surprise. He's a rebel. Violet nearly loses her mind over this, which I guess is fair, but she's able to hold it together because the griffin riders and Xaden start talking about venin attacking. And
I forgot about venin.
For some reason, Violet is really, really surprised to learn that venin and wyverns, which are like evil dragons, and venin are like evil humans, she's surprised to learn they're not just creatures of myth, but are in fact real.
I see. And
that the griffin riders are as much engaged in a war against the venin hordes as they are against her home kingdom of whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. Xaden promises to like explain everything later, but for now they have to get to the fort, right? So like they exchange some weapons with the griffin riders, and then they go to the fort. And when they get there, it's empty. Like they were expecting some like school officials to be there to like help them like set shit up. And it's empty, and there's a letter on a desk. And the letter is from Colonel Atos, who knew Xaden was a traitor, and he sent them to the fort.
Oh my god.
Because he knew the fort was about to be attacked by venin. Oh my god!
Oh wait, that's awful. Why would he do that?
Because he knew Xaden was a traitor and he wanted Xaden to die. And killing Xaden is so important that it's even okay if Violet dies in the process, even though she has 2 dragons and lightning and time powers.
Definitely Team Xaden now.
4 Venin show up, and I don't know what you were imagining as being Venin, but like the way that they're described earlier on in the second half is more like zombies.
Okay.
From like the very brief descriptions that you get in the second half, it sounds like they're these kind of mindless, like shambling, but very hard to kill hordes of humanoid creatures that are in some way linked to wyverns. But
wait. This is literally straight out of Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay, cool. I haven't read that either. So what it turns out though is that the Venin are not mindless, and they're not many. They are few because they are extremely powerful. So 4 Venin show up with a whole bunch of wyverns, but like the Venin alone are a massive threat.
Yeah, okay.
There's also like a little town below the fort, and the town belongs to like the other kingdom that's not the good one.
Okay.
The quote-unquote good one.
Yeah.
So Xaden feels like his duty is to protect those civilians as well, right?
Right.
But if they protect those civilians, it'll mean that they don't get to participate in the war games in time, which means they'll automatically lose or something.
Okay.
And then they'll be punished, I guess. They did explain that, but I was caught up in the Venin thing.
Yeah.
So the Venin are like these like dark sorcerers who have the power to like kill things instantly that get too close to them, like they just suck the life right out of them. And they're immune to dragon fire for some reason.
Are they immune to electricity?
No. Good call on that one. So they do succeed in killing all the Venin, or at least killing enough of them and getting the people to safety and getting away, but in the process, Liam dies.
Okay.
Which is sad. Oh, and then Violet is critically wounded, and she passes out. And this is when we transition to Xaden's point of view.
So what does Xaden have to say to all of this?
So, final chapter, POV switch to Xaden. He bums around an unknown location, thinking about how much he loves Violet and how hot she is.
Let's go!
And how he hopes that she's alive.
Oh, never mind.
And how he thinks she's like the most beautiful, amazing woman in the world. And there's this really, really bad part. We should definitely read this part when we do our readings. But she wakes up. Of course, she's fine. And he asks her like a question about where she thinks they are. And she looks at a picture or something. And it resembles like a city that was thought destroyed. And so she says that city. And in his internal monologue, he's like, brilliant, period, fucking, period, woman, period. And it's like, she just answered a basic question. Like,
yeah.
It would be like if we lived in a post-apocalypse and I showed you a picture of New York City, and I was like, hey, Andrew, what city is this? And you were like, oh, that's New York City. And I was like, his mind drove me wild. Like, it's such an unproportionate response.
Yeah.
So yeah, he like thinks she's really hot or whatever when she wakes up. Oh yeah, and then it turns out the place that they are is a resistance base.
Okay.
And then Brennan walks in and says, welcome to the revolution, and the book ends.
What, Brent, the dead person?
Yeah, the dead brother walks in.
With no
setup. He just walks in, he's like, welcome to the revolution, and the book ends.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's just it. You have the book in front of you, surely. You can flip to the page and see it for yourself.
I feel drained.
Yeah.
I was going to say before all of this that this was the first half and half book that I wanted to read the second half of.
Don't.
But
don't.
Now that you say that is not the book that I thought it was going to be.
It's
and I'm actually really sad.
It's so uninterested in its own world. Like, so much airtime is, I don't know, sucked out of the airlock into the vacuum of space so that there's like space for the characters to have sex. Like, it's really sad. I'm not trying to say this in like a Gen Z, like Puritan kind of way. It's just like, there's an interesting story about like the bureaucracy of this academy and the nature of like storytelling and how stories that aren't passed on are forgotten. It gets totally brushed aside so that we can read the word cock and clit a lot of times. And I think that's sad. And that's not a joke. That is true.
Yeah, no, definitely not reading the second half now. I was gonna say, so yeah, talk about the interesting world. I wanted to ask you, in all of that, was there any reference to this one little world building note? When people die, you're supposed to burn all of their personal possessions. And I thought that was an interesting little beat, because what does that affect generational wealth in this world?
I don't know.
You don't know? God.
Well, at one point, wait, hold on. The first time that Xaden and Violet have sex, the sex is so good and so crazy, they destroy all the furniture in her room.
Okay, well...
Okay, I think I'll just end the call. Yeah, I'll just end the call.
Yeah, you blew all the air out of this. Joshua, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Unrelated. Would you rather be good for your skill level or a disappointment?
To whom?
The society, the eyes of the watching world.
Well, one of those things seems objectively better than the other, so I'm not sure where the trick is. I'll just say I'd rather be good for my skill level.
Because I feel like Rebecca disappointed me.
You sound really sad right now.
I am because like I liked the half of this book that I read, and hearing what you're saying, I'm disappointed. This is bad for her skill level. She started great and then dropped everything. It's like a second person wrote this book. I'm glad I'm not getting a lot of accuracy points because I like the version I made better.
Yeah. Your version, I think, is grounded in the actual characters, whereas in the version that I read, Taryn as a character and Darna as a character, they don't really matter all that much.
Yeah.
Two of the moments where they really matter, at least in terms of Taryn, is after Jack is killed, all of the characters rally around Violet for a minute to be like, don't feel bad about killing him. He was bad, and narratively that means he needed to die.
Right.
Taryn is the one who gives the longest and most thoughtful version of that exact same sentiment that gets reiterated. So that was nice. And Taryn also plays a big role in the fight that Liam ultimately does die as a result of. But he does his best to try to save Liam, and that there's a moment there that was kind of nice, but they barely feature. The other side characters, they hardly feature at all. They each do a little thing during the heist, and then Rhiannon gets an additional moment where she and Violet are hanging out, and Violet is like, wow, we're really best girlfriends. And Rhiannon is like, as your best girlfriend, I agree that we're best girlfriends. And that's the last time they really talk in the whole book.
Are you serious?
Yeah, pretty much.
Joshua. Rebecca.
I know.
Wow.
It was almost callous in the way that it felt like that scene, or scenes like that, existed merely to fulfill a narrative necessity. There has to be a scene where we're reminded that the best friend characters are best friends, but nothing happens in that scene other than that.
Right. There can't be a moment where they're acting like best friends doing something else, maybe?
No, they can't be mixing potions together or doing other apothecary stuff or going to the archives and reading together.
It's the oranges thing for me. I mean, I'm not going to say that this was literary fiction in what I read, but I found the little potion making scene to be solid narratively. It wasn't I ascertained this incredibly off chance that he has a citrus allergy.
Yeah, she intuited it like Sherlock Holmes. It was very weird.
Oh, Rebecca. Oh, Rebecca. Oh, Rebecca.
There are a dozen of these daggers strapped to my body, so start disarming me.
He lifts a sardonic brow.
Unless you don't know how to handle an opponent on top of you, and if so, that's a whole other issue.
I know how to handle you on top of me, I challenge quietly. He lowers his mouth to my ear.
You won't like what happens if you push me.
Or maybe I will. I turn just enough that my lips brush the shell of his ear. The shell? He jerks up, and the heat in his gaze makes me all too aware of everywhere our bodies connect.
Disarm me before I test that theory in front of everyone in this gym.
Interesting. I didn't take you for an exhibitionist.
Keep pushing, and I guess you'll find out.
Okay, we're stopping there. I just want to see how long I can get you to do that. Oh god, I'm so glad I didn't read that. Oh man.
I felt like Vad Deverell creeping out of this, I don't know, the girl in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like he was pushing out of the book. 7 days after you read Fourth Wing, Vad Deverell crawls through your bookcase and kills you in your sleep. How about the inexplicable character point of view shift right at the end?
Yeah, I mean, Lanny Sarum did that a couple times, so I think it's a trope. It might be a sins affair for this kind of genre.
In this case, it felt to me like a band-aid. Like, Violet has to be unconscious right now, so we need to explain what's going on, so, like, Xaden has to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel, like, natural. It felt like, the writing had cornered the story, if that makes sense.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I think it might have literally she had written herself into a corner and just had to get out of it.
For me, I think the worst thing is that it's not a story. Like, this book is not a story. It is half a story.
Yeah, well, clearly it is half a story. Talk about my disappointment. That's why I lean so heavily into the Avengers thing, because it is very evident, even from my half, which I did enjoy, that there was not enough here to sustain a book of this magnitude. And I thought she would do that just by making it porn for the rest of the book. And lo and behold, I'm disappointed that she didn't even do that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in Iron Flame, I guess.
To be fair, the sex scenes are very long, and there's like 3 or 4 of them, but yeah, it's not the whole book by any means. There is some other stuff that happens, but it feels more and more token.
Mm-hmm.
The final fight scene with the 4 Venom and then like all the wyverns that they summon is also pretty long.
Yeah, that seems like a bad boss fight in a B-tier video game.
It was, and because the novel had spent so little time investing in like explaining the world. Not that I would want the novel to stop and sit me down and explain, like, this is what the Venom are.
Right.
But it leaves you this breadcrumb trail of, like I said, Venom as, like, a big mindless horde, and then there's 4 of them, and they're, like, the strongest dark sorcerers from any given Fire Emblem game.
Right, yeah.
Where they just one-shot you if you get too close. Which, it feels like such a bizarre twist, but, like, not like a plot twist. Like I've been lied to as a reader. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, because I really thought it would be all about the wyverns. I knew what Venom were. I knew that they were a thing that they were talking about, but I didn't think it would show up this immediately or in this way.
Like, the fact that there's 4 of them and they're extremely powerful makes it almost seem like they could be characters. Like, these 4 particular Venom could be characters, but they're really not. They are just, like, random video game bosses. Okay, since you seem really sad, I want to talk about something that really clicked with me at the end. This isn't going to make you happier. This is just I don't know. This is just something I noticed that clicked for me at the end. So, the Venom are talked about, usually in conjunction with Violet's dad.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he told us these fables of Venom, and then later Violet has this moment where she's like, every story is just a generation away from being lost if we don't pass it on. Like, once she realizes that Venom are real, right? Because she's like, oh, well, this information was suppressed, and I thought they were myth, and now they're real, and it's like my dad was always saying about fables. And then in the acknowledgements, the first sentence is, first and foremost, thank you to my heavenly father for blessing me beyond my wildest dreams.
Based?
Which, to me, was the biggest plot twist of all. Because how are you going to write that many times and then be like, dear Lord Jesus? That was my first thought. My second thought was, oh, okay, there's some kind of Christian allegory going on here, right? With like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had the experience of encountering Christians in person and on the internet that are like, there's only ever one generation away from the gospel being lost forever and everyone going to hell. There is a parallel in the way that I've heard Christians talk about evangelizing, and then the way that Violet talks about the fables being passed on, and the fables which are, of course, true, and which are treated by her as like a sort of scripture that her dad passed on.
I'm going to say that I think this is probably more subconscious cultural influence.
No, I completely agree.
She's just drawing on what she knows.
But I thought it was something interesting that could be pressed more into, honestly. This idea of stories always being on the verge of extinction. But the novel doesn't invest in that.
No.
And I guess there is a whole other novel coming, but I want to think that every book should be able to stand on its own to some degree.
Yeah.
Especially a first book in a series. Like, it should have enough closure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is I don't know, it's more than a cliffhanger. It's still falling off the cliff. Like,
I am legitimately sad. I didn't expect the ending of this book to be good, but from oranges to Brennan, it just blew my mind how insanely your half is different than mine.
I feel like I wronged you by reporting it. I feel like I should have just lied and made up a cooler story and you would have had no recourse.
Because, I might have read it. I really wanted to read the second half, but I think Damon Good said it best when he said, shade the beacon light and keep thy knowledge hidden from those who seek not paths of worth.
That's very Gnostic.
Yeah, and I think that's what you need to do here, is shade the beacon light and let me live in my wonderful, wonderful ignorance, where I have a pretty good fantasy story for 250 pages.
One thing I was interested in as you were talking about the relationship between Violet and her mom. Because in the second half, her mom is like actively rolling a loogie around her mouth at all times, threatening to spit it directly onto Violet. Like,
really? Okay.
It is... She seems to, like, hate her.
Was she doing this in, like, a disciplinarian, like, trying to keep her on her toes way? Or did it seem punitive?
It seemed like she just didn't like her. Like, she wanted her to be great, because if she wasn't great, it would be besmirching the Sorrengail name, not because she wanted to see her daughter become great.
Absolutely.
Even though both those things are toxic, like, one of them is, to me at least, a little bit more empathize-withable.
Yes, that famous term.
Yeah, the real word that is real. It seemed like she just hated her.
Well, yeah, I mean, she definitely was never warm, but there was like she said to Mira, like, if you could get through this, then so can Violet, because she goes through more pain than you do in a whole year in just one day for her. And I thought, that shows, it wasn't like warm or like loving, but it was a level of like consciousness about Violet. But yeah, no, I think that's consistent in that characterization.
Okay. How about that pain though?
What about it?
Because there was some chatter about this being like disability representation. How do you feel about that from your half?
I don't know, because if I didn't know through cultural osmosis this was disability rep, I wouldn't have pegged it as such. I honestly just thought that like Violet was just abnormally weak. I almost wish they had like given her like a fantasy disability. I that would probably be like way problematic, but like you can't call this isn't what she has, but you can't call Alzheimer's in a fantasy story, right?
Right.
Like I almost wish they had given her brittle bones. Mm-hmm. Well, that's actually a real thing.
Dragon wing skin.
Sure, yeah. Like I almost wish they had given her something that we could like draw a parallel to in real life, because like I didn't get any disability rep. Never noticed it.
Okay, so the first half doesn't really explain like what she may or may not have. Doesn't even like sort of point in the direction of like what real world analog it might be.
All I know is that she has brittle bones and her joints aren't very good.
Oh, okay, because in the second half they specifically talk about her knees several times and how it's hard for her to ride dragons for long periods because her knees are not the best.
Right. I knew that much. Okay. But, I mean, I would not call this like a forerunner in disability representation. Right. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay, yeah. I was prepared to talk about this as like disability representation, and like in response to the question, is it disability representation? I kind of come up with two answers, and it depends on what your question behind that question is. Mm-hmm. Like, I think if it's an academic curiosity, like, is this technically disability representation? Then sure. Yes, she has a disability and she is represented. But, like, if you want to know if it's worth reading on the basis of disability representation, I would say that if you're looking to feel understood as a disabled person and, like, feel seen by the fiction that you're reading, I think you might be interested in the parts of the novel that addresses, like, dragon riding accessibility. Sure. There's a part where Xaden, like, makes a new type of saddle for her that's, like, more suited to her body. Oh, that's cool. Which is really cool. Yeah. But, like, he just gives it to her one day out of nowhere. Oh. And she's like, how did you make this? And he's like, I made it. And it's like, what do you mean?
That's so funny. I don't know. I'm wary about putting this on a pedestal for disability representation. And it's not Rebecca's fault so much as it is the society that this fantasy world is in is so cruel to all people that I could see people being offended from a disability standpoint, where it's just, this is a crazy militaristic society that values physical strength. It's a really tough situation.
Oh yeah, I don't see this book as like problematic in that sense at all.
No, but it might be construed that way because of the way that the world is That's different than the actual message of the text per se.
Yeah.
But
well, I think the text doesn't land on any message because like they spend so much time just having sex and like fighting shadow wizards that it's like all of the characters and things that are interesting from a narrative perspective are like totally thrown out so that we can have more spectacle.
Yeah.
I mean, Dane's like out of the story right now. Like I'm sure he'll come back, but probably as like a villain now because he's like you said, he's a proponent of law. And Law is the academy, and she's in the rebellion now,
well,
so...
Are you team Xaden, or are you team Dane?
She seems so uninterested in Dane by the end. There's a moment where she seems interested in Liam, where they seem like they might like make out or something in my half, but even that is like a pretty obvious red herring.
Right. No, like there was a little... I mean, she says that she wants to kiss Dane, or that... Dane is like attractive, and when they first talk to each other in the text, they have like this weird like exchange of flirty sex jokes, but like it's the kind of thing that you would just say as a bit to a platonic friend, you know what I mean? It did not imply flirting.
Right.
Yeah, definitely team Xaden.
Yeah, I guess I am too by default. There's not really another team.
I don't know, Liam might come back through. He might get resurrected by the Venom.
I don't know if they can do that. Like, they were walking through the forest and it was like the trees were dying around them and stuff, so I think their power is pretty one way.
One can dream.
Winning the war games isn't about strength. It's about cunning. To know how to strike, you have to understand where your enemies, your friends, are most vulnerable. No one stays friends forever, Mira. Eventually, those closest to us become our enemies in some way, even if it's through well-intentioned love or apathy, or even if we live long enough to become their villains.
We have heard my prediction. We have heard Joshua's recounting of what actually happened, and we've dived a little bit into the implications of that and what that means. Now, with all of these predictions and the predictions of the card in mind, Joshua is going to present to me my final score.
Okay, so in terms of the 3 questions that I asked you, which as a reminder were, who does Violet end up with? What happens between Violet and Liam at the pre-graduation ball? And what character turns out to be closeted? I have to give you a solid 3.3 out of 10.
Okay.
You got the first question right. Violet does end up with Xaden 75%. They're basically together, but there's a moment where she says, I love you, and he doesn't say it back. And then, like, the final fight happens. Mm-hmm. So then it's, like, ambiguous. Even though, like, he's lusting over her for his whole last chapter, right. It's like he's not willing to commit. He's kind of a shithead for that. None of the characters turned out to be closeted. That was a total fake out.
Damn.
And I don't remember what you said about Violet and Liam at the pre-graduation ball, but it wasn't correct, so... Okay. Alright, so that's a 3 out of 10 there. Or 3.3 out of 10, if we're doing decimals.
Good enough. I'll take it.
I'll do imaginary numbers. A square root of -1. Okay, in terms of, was your prediction better than the actual book? I would say a good 7 out of 10.
Okay.
There are parts of it that I liked more. I liked your version of the heist better in particular.
Okay.
The archives is a place that in the second half keeps getting brought up over and over again, and they don't really go there. So I think a heist there in this like sacred realm of learning, that feels very fun. It's like a fun kind of violation of the rules that Dane would not like. I also sort of enjoyed your clueless interpretation of Dane where he's like, have sex with me. Wait, I didn't mean to blackmail you. I take it back. I think that's kind of silly.
Okay, I like it.
In terms of how accurate were you? Like 3, maybe? There were a couple things that you were right about. Like
I did a little bit better than a 3.
I'd say you're about 30% right.
Oh my god.
I mean, most of the stuff you said was just wrong. Let's be real.
Yeah, okay.
There were 2 things you got correct, and there was a fight with Jack, and there was a heist. That's about it.
But okay, wait. The Griffins being friendly. That was well, no, okay, that wasn't
okay.
really...
Yeah, well, yeah, no, you're right. There's a rebellion, and there's Griffins that are good guys, or nominally not bad guys. Okay, I'll give you a 4.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay, 3 for questions, 4 for accuracy, and 7 for improvement. So 14 out of 30?
That's not bad.
Could be a lot worse. It could be 50% worse.
It could have been the actual plot of the story that we got.
True. How did you stack up against the tarot cards? I don't know. I would say the tarot cards were about as wrong, just in totally different directions.
I liked the tarot card version too.
The thing about me reading the cards is, like, I know what happens, so I'm able to, like, throw in tiny little bits of correct information if I think it's interesting, so it's kind of cheating. So I don't want to give the tarot cards a better score than you, at least not this time.
It's the magic of the cards. It's the magic of the cards.
I give the cards 3 as well. I really liked that I drew the reversed magician right at the start, because I feel like that was a really fun card.
Yeah.
So you win, question mark.
I win 14 points. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a better score than our previous 2 episodes. We'll see if we can beat the next one. I don't know what the next book is going to be yet, but maybe it'll be Iron Flame, because that's about to come out. The English Club is expanding. The programming is diversifying. Watch this space. There's a lot going on.
Check the verticals. Check the verticals.
Andrew,
I feel like I should apologize to you.
For ruining my entire night with this horrible, horrible second half of the book?
Yeah, I feel like by telling you what happened in, like, a comically cynical way, your day was, like, legitimately worsened.
It's never good to be known, because the second that you truly know something, it can only disappoint you. And that's what happened here. My mind was spinning with possibilities and alive with theories. It's like explaining a joke. Now, I know why it's funny. I know how it works, but it'll never have the same magic to me again. And I think that is a lesson that we can all take home in terms of ambiguity in writing.
If we read Iron Flame, you'll have to read the second half of Fourth Wing.
Well, I had a good time reading this book. I did enjoy it. Rebecca, you can ball with the rest of them. I think you chose not to. I'm excited to see where things go from here now that we've given you the critique that you so desperately asked us for. And...
Yeah, I think that if Xaden stopped trying to finger the daughter of his father's killer, then this could have been a good book.
I finally fingered my father's killer, but it seems that I fingered myself. Anyways, so yeah, this has been the English Club podcast. I've been Andrew.
And I've been so sexy.
That is exactly how he sounded in my head. Follow us on Instagram or Twitter for more. I run the Instagram. Joshua runs the Twitter. We stay active in between videos, and we produce a lot of side content here and there. So keep in touch. Love hearing from you guys. And Rebecca, welcome to the English Club. We will see you guys all at our next meeting, and I'll see you guys around campus.
That definitely wasn't an accident, little sister, he says from the doorway. I sigh and move to the side, watching Violet's eyes widen as she sees him standing in the doorway.
Brennan?
She stares at her brother in open-mouthed shock. Brennan just grins and opens his arms. Welcome to the revolution, Violet.
I can't believe I predicted that. Open mouth shock. That sounds like released a breath she didn't know it was holding, or blood drained from her face. And then there was something stupid. I need an extra point. I need to get a 15 for that.
Okay, fine. You can have a 5. I'll give you 5 instead of a 4.
Okay, whatever.
So yeah, you can have a full 15 out of 30.
Let's go. 50%. That ain't bad.